Welcome back to the Dom Skiing channel. This is my what I would do mock draft. I specify because this is not a prediction of what NFL teams will do tonight, but my own personal opinion of who I would select at each spot of the NFL draft in the first round if I were the GM of these teams based on stock value as a prospect and a player in the NFL, how good the player is, how potential, obviously, a lot of factors involved. But here's my what I would do mock draft. Cam Ward number one seems to be the pick, obviously. Talked about at length, but really any of these first three could go. But these top three, Ward, Hunter, Carter, are locked in. We all know that those are the top three players in the draft, and to get any of those at a lower spot or any of these other teams that would trade up, I think would be pretty good value considering you wouldn't have to give up as much as in other years for a top three pick. Anyway, these are all three generational sort of talents. I don't think anyone would argue that these guys have been in different orders this entire offseason. Ward, Hunter, Carter seems to be the consensus right now. And McMillan to the Patriots, I've envisioned for a long time. I think the basketball on turf concept of having 6'5 McMillan, 6'5 May in New England is too compelling, way too enticing to pass up. I think you can find some tackle help later in the draft. And they've got a pretty good roster right now. So Mason Graham to the Jags seems like a foregone conclusion at this point. As far as NFL draft media is concerned, obviously, this isn't a solidified draft by any means. There's a lot of different opinions about prospects. Some people think, Shadur Sanders could go to the Giants there instead of Abdul Carter, which would cause a big ripple effect with the Patriots taking Carter. So you can see maybe either of those happening. Graham to the Jags at 5 seems pretty likely, although McMillan is also, I think this is also a likely landing spot for him. And Genty, if he doesn't get picked up before 4 or 6, it feels like this is the most popular landing spot for him right now. And it just seems like a perfect fit, obviously, with Pete Carroll there. He's just a top 5 player in this draft for sure. Warren to the Jets, I think. Makes too much sense. You got to look at just who's the best player available at this point, and the Jets are getting one of those players who can really change the scope of things. I think Mike Green would be my pick if I was the Panthers. I believe in that Senior Bowl performance and that vicious. I think he's got a pretty high floor, and a pretty high ceiling as well. So I would take him. I think he reminds me of Will Campbell, but a little bit bigger. Maybe not quite that type of leader. I know he's had some off the field things, and those type of guys are sliding in a lot of people's mock drafts today. But I believe in him. Will Campbell, I'm pretty sour on him compared to most people. I think, but I'm not sour. I think need based. New Orleans, right down the street from LSU, perfect fit. And then with Ryan Ramczyk just retiring recently in the last week. He's just a perfect fit there because they need a guard, and the most solid, highest floor guard possible, I think, is Will Campbell. Walter Nolan to Chicago at 10. I think they would love Genty or a lot of these other picks. I could have them getting Nolan. Then Zabel would be my absolute dream pick for my Seattle Seahawks. You see my Jordan Babineau signed picture up here. Anyway, but I think that he's going to get taken far above this. I saw somebody say today that McMillan and Zabel are the two likely Seahawks picks, but I would be jumping up and down if we got either of those. Anyway, Omarion Hampton, I have the Dallas taking at 12. Membu to Dolphins at 13. Loveland to the Colts at 14. Actually met him and met his parents, so very good guy. Jalen Walker stays within the state, going from Georgia to the Atlanta Falcons. Calvin Banks from Texas going to Arizona. A lot of these are just kind of how I have my big board ranked, best player available. Jahad Campbell I have going to the Bengals at 17. And the Seahawks I have taking Shamar Stewart at 18. I'm really not sure I would like any of the players above this almost. There's a few that might not fit perfectly position-wise, but I would like almost any of the players that I have above this on this list. I just think that's who would fall to us if I was all these other NFL GMs taking the players that I like ahead of it. Anyway, Malachi Starks at 19 to the Bucks. Broncos get Kenneth Grant from Michigan on the interior, which I would love for the Seahawks to do, and I think they would probably make that pick ahead of Shamar Stewart. But I might just have them take edge. And I think Stewart is incredibly toolsy. Could be a guy that goes earlier that the NFL likes more than a lot of these media guys. And then Sanders, I think he's definitely going to go tonight in my opinion. But I don't know if it's going to be. It'll just be interesting to see. Does Sanders have a chance at going number 3? To the Giants? Is that a possibility? And if he does, I think that would clear up a lot of the all these concerns about is he actually good enough. I guess we'll just see at this point, because I'm not going to make one video here with a few minutes of the draft and give you my entire evaluation of Shedeur. But we'll talk about it as I start to talk about NFL a little more on this channel, but focusing more on baseball. Anyway, Matthew Golden to the Chargers at 22, Jahdae Barron to the Packers at 23. I think that's the steal of the draft if that were to happen. I have a big slide in these corners, and I don't feel confident that Barron and Johnson are going to last this long, but I have seen them slipping out on some people's boards. Barron in particular, I expect to go in that 10 to 20 range for sure, and there would be a lot of teams screaming to maybe trade up for that. Egbuka, I think, is a perfect C.J. Stroud complement, as they know each other from Ohio State, and then just to add to that room. Wide receivers, dependable option. Josh Simmons, obviously really good potential at tackle. Could have been the best tackle in this class had he not gotten hurt. But he's going to go to the Rams at 26 here. Tyler Bucker in the huge hands. I think he's a good pick for the Seahawks. He would be a better need-based pick, obviously, with that interior offensive line. But even based on who's available here. But, this is, I think, just a perfect Greg Roman run game pick for Baltimore. Then Luther Burden going to Detroit, because I think that's just who can we actually line up with these players available that are left. James Pierce, I don't know if they could even line him up, because they have Aiden Hutchinson and they have all these good edges, the guys that were playing when he was not there. Trevor Nowaski, from Canada, that guy's really good. So anyway, I think that Detroit could line up Luther Burden along with J-Mo and Amon-Ra, and that offense would just get a little bit better than having like Khalil Shakir, or Khalif Raymond or whoever. Donovan Ezeraku to the Commanders at 29. I think they need somebody that can produce right away, and I think that Ezeraku has that type of floor with what he put up at Boston College as far as numbers. Michael Williams from Georgia going to the Bills, just a guy who might be a little bit more of a one-dimensional edge, but is going to be a really good fit. I think they're in Buffalo, just stopping the run, strong as an ox. In the cold weather, I think, in the AFC North, Michael Williams is a perfect player. And then Josh Connolly feels like a perfect player for the Chiefs here. Seattle, Rainier Beach product. This is a guy who, has all the potential and all the tools to succeed. We don't know exactly what position he's going to end up at on the O-line, but the Chiefs seem to really do a good job developing these linemen recently. So I think that this is a perfect pick for them. Then James Pierce Jr. People do make jokes about the Eagles taking guys with character concerns, quote unquote, to a lot of these teams. But James Pierce, obviously a tremendous physical talent that if the Eagles get, it's hard to see how he won't add to that, already Super Bowl winning defensive line room. And that's my mock draft for the first round. I'll be back tomorrow after we know what happens in this first round, recap it a little bit, analyze, and then I want to do a second and third round mock. So I will see you guys tomorrow. With that being said, let me know what you guys think is going to happen in the comments down below. If you do have post notifications turned on, and if you do, I will shout you out. I'll read your comment on tomorrow's analysis video. We're going to be breaking it all down here on the Dom Skeen channel. Deuces.